Welcome to Valley News Now. I'm Adam Shalafu, and I am joined by Jake Shapiro. Jake, a writer out there in Denver, Colorado, where all the action is going down tomorrow night. Buffs beat writer, Nuggets beat writer, does a little bit of everything, even has done some breaking news in his day for 104.3 The Fan right now. But Jake, you got a long history with the Buffs. Thank you so much for joining us on Valley News Now, talking a little bit about the big game tomorrow night.
Yeah, obviously excitement here is through the roof. Colorado Buffaloes historically a really great program and have not been good the last decade now, number of years. So the excitement Deion Sanders has brought to Boulder has just been one thing, and now it's about, hey, can he bring the results as he tries to turn around this football program? And this is a really pivotal year.
And you mentioned turn around, and I like that you said turn around, because I feel like in some ways this program is getting a treatment like they've already turned it around. They're getting tons of publicity, but they're still in the process of turning this around.
Yeah, and you got to keep in mind, Deion inherited a one-win team, and they got to 4 wins last year, which in itself wasn't an accomplishment. But the goal for Deion Sanders spelled out towards the end of last season was, hey, next year, year 2, we want to be a college football playoff team. I don't know if those ambitions are real based off of what the sports books think and thinking they're around a 5 or a 6 win team. But even a 6-win season for the Buffaloes would be an accomplishment. This is a program that's been to 1 bowl game in a full season since 2007. This is a program that since leaving the Big 12 the first time hasn't really done anything notable. So the fact that they're going to send 2 top 10 guys to the NFL draft next year in Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, and, hopefully what they do from a team perspective, it's just night and day compared to what it was just a couple years ago in Boulder, when they've lost in the last 15 years to multiple FCS schools in Boulder at home. So this is something that scares them, this week 1 matchup, the fan base, because of the recent history, but it's also something that the fan base looks at as a launching pad towards what could be a very special year.
Now, one thing I want to talk to you about, because not a lot of people may know this, but I used to cover that team with you, and it was the Mel Tucker era. And so much has changed. That was 2020, 2019, 2021-ish era. So much has changed since then. And, even Carl Durrell there in the interim before Deion comes in. And so I want to ask you, Jake, how long have you been covering this team? And what kind of evolution have you seen, especially since Neon Deion took the helm?
Yeah, I've been covering this team since 2014, which was pretty much the start of the Mike McIntyre era. And I lived in Boulder before that, so I closely followed the program through the Hawkins and the John Embry eras. So this is now, several coaches down the line of trying to build back off of what Bill McCartney and, a couple other coaches after that made the Buffaloes into such a great program for the late 80s, the 90s, and the early part of the 2000s, and they've just collapsed since. Colorado had not hosted game day. They did that last year. They had not hosted game day since 2 decades before. The Buffaloes have not scored major top 25 wins outside of their 2016 season, which featured guys on their roster like Phil Lindsay and Chidobe Awuzie and some other guys who really went to the NFL and did well in the NFL. So besides that one blimp year, they really haven't had much success, even in individual contests led over the course of a whole season, going back all the way to the mid-2000s. Really, 2004 was when things kind of started to turn, 2005 for Colorado. So what Deion's brought in terms of the attention to the fan base and the attention to the school is stuff that has not been seen in Boulder since the 90s, just the relevancy of Colorado football locally, regionally, nationally. Obviously, the wins are not there yet, but you also have an energy within who is coming to campus, right? You have legitimate celebrities coming out to the games to see what's going on with the Buffaloes program. Some of Deion's friends, rappers, actors, really, really famous folks that, I've been to the NBA Finals. I've covered the NBA Finals. Some of these people would be too famous to go to the NBA Finals, if you catch my drift. So you're seeing some really famous folks out at these games, and then it's starting to reflect back in the campus dynamics of the University of Colorado Boulder. It's a very, very white school. Boulder is a very white place, and the diversity that has been brought in the two classes since Deion has been hired as the head coach have been very different. It's more minorities. It's more folks from different parts of the country coming to Colorado, which is great news if you're trying to become a big international school like Colorado hopes to be. And it's not like Colorado was going from this old white guy coach to Deion Sanders. The two coaches before Deion Sanders were also black men. But something about Deion Sanders, and obviously the fact that he's one of the greatest athletes of all time, but his personality is such a draw for people, and it captivates people and inspires people. And that's one of the reasons why he's been able to talk some really great football players into coming to Boulder, where they have not had a lot of success recently, in the hopes of turning this thing around.
And Jake, it's a really exciting matchup as well. We've texted a little bit about this and just kind of Colorado, no joke on the outside, especially some of the speed and explosive playabilities they've had. And that showed up for sure at times last year as well. From what I have seen, there's been a ton of activity in the transfer portal. If you could really just give me a basic scout of the team, who are these guys?
Well, most people would start with Shedeur Sanders because he's the quarterback, but I would start with Travis Hunter. He's the best player in college football. I don't care that he's not going to win the Heisman because he's not a quarterback. He plays two sides of the ball. He plays defensive back and wide receiver. He's Shohei Ohtani in college football, and he's great at both things. He'd be a first-round pick as a wide receiver. He'd be a first-round pick as a defensive back. And the thing is, he missed 3.5 games last year of action because of a dirty hit took him out, and he still played more snaps than any other player in the country because of his work on both sides of the ball. He's worked with sprinters all offseason who've been trying to make him even faster and test his endurance, just sprinting over and over again and then taking a couple seconds off, kind of like you would in a football game rather than an endurance run, right? So Travis is just an all-time college football player, and he's hoping to have an all-time season here in his junior year, following up about 700 yards catching in his first season in Boulder. And what's very funny is Deion Sanders, who's famous for playing both sides of the ball for the Dallas Cowboys, he did not do that in college, by the way. Travis Hunter's stats from his sophomore season in college look very similar to Deion Sanders' career wide receiver numbers in the NFL. So the Deion Sanders comparisons to Travis Hunter are apt. And Deion Sanders has said himself, I think Travis Hunter is a better athlete than me. So Travis has all the praise in the world. That's the star of the team. Shedeur Sanders, Deion's son, going to be a first-round quarterback. He is a fantastic deep ball thrower. He's got great accuracy. He's got some ability to escape the pocket. He's not like a Lamar Jackson or a Jaden Daniels, but can he scramble a little bit? Can he be like a Joe Burrow or a Pat Mahomes in terms of just like creating some plays off of script? Yeah. So Shedeur is a really, really good quarterback. The thing that held him back last year, as you kind of talked about, Adam, is the offensive line was just so bad. He got sacked more than any other quarterback in the country. They brought in the number one offensive line recruit in the country, Jordan Seaton, and they got 5 different Power 5 offensive line transfers, as well as they got 2 guys from their roster last year that were ineligible to play, eligible due to different transfer rules and stuff like that. So their offensive line is completely rebuilt, and there's hope that it will be better. They got a transfer running back in from Ohio State. He'll be their starter. And then on the outside, they lost Xavier Weaver, who's with the Arizona Cardinals now. They still have Jimmy Horn, who led them in wide receiving yards and stuff like that last year. And they've paired him with LeJontay Wester, who was one of the best kick returners in the country last year in Florida. And they've brought in another wide receiver, a transfer from Vanderbilt, who should be one of their top receivers. So they're completely rebuilt on offense. Their new offensive coordinator is Pat Shurmur, who is a former Assistant of the Year winner in the NFL, multiple-time NFL head coach. I'm not the biggest fan of him, but he should put Shedeur into a more pro system. Last year, some of the terms got confusing in year one. So this is a rebuilt team. On the defensive side of the ball, there's Deion's other son, Shiloh Sanders, who's the starting safety. He's a big hitter, solid player, will probably be a late round NFL draft pick. And then opposite Travis Hunter, you've got Preston Hodge, who is one of the top transfer corners in the country this past offseason. So they're really looking forward to see him. And the biggest name Colorado added to their team this year is BJ Green, who was an all Pac-12 defensive lineman last year. Their edge rushing should be good. I think Colorado's going to struggle to stop the run a little bit, but I do think they're attack and getting after the quarterback and defending the pass outside should be pretty good. So they're a team that's going to be built on passing both offensively and defensively.
That's a ton of great information there. One thing that Coach Polasek has been extremely complimentary of, and I don't know if you got the memo, but he actually said that Shedeur is not just the best player that this generation, if you will, of NDSU players have seen, but he called him the best player that the program's ever played against. And so obviously a lot of respect there. And one of the things he really made a focal point about is how good he is off platform, how good he is on some of that improvising. NDSU, a team that, you know, they're going to blitz, and they're going to bring a lot of different blitz packages. That's well documented and coming right from the coaches, not just my speculation. How does he handle the pressure, and how good can he be on the run when he might be getting chased down by the green and gold?
Let me be clear. 2 years ago, the Colorado Buffaloes roster was worse than North Dakota State's roster any of the last couple of years. Last year, their offensive line was definitely worse than the Bison's offensive line. This year, the hope is that they're a competent college football offensive line. So if that's the case, you factor in the fact that Shedeur already broke all sorts of single-season passing records for the Colorado Buffaloes last year with a bad offensive line. You give him more weapons on the outside. He had plenty last year, but you give him even more, and you give him a better offensive coordinator who's going to be able to diagnose blitzes a little bit better. And by the way, you know what's going to help? The radio comms. That's going to help all the players a lot, quite a lot. And I don't hear that being talked enough about, is that the communication in college football is going to be completely different, and it should lend itself to the offense being a little bit more in sync. So that should help. But I ultimately think that Shedeur, who is somebody who's trained with Tom Brady and had been at these elite quarterback camps and is trained with Russell Wilson and some other just elite quarterbacks, is going to fall back on the fact that he's got this experience in his training, and also he's got the athletic genes of Deion Sanders, right? So his off-platform throwing comes from the fact that he's a very smart guy because he grew up around football, and his dad's got all the connects in the world. But he's also got the athleticism of his father, maybe not to that extreme, where he's able to do some things on a football field that are truly special. So I think Colorado will be a lot better at handling blitzing and all sorts of getting after the quarterback this year than they were last year. Like last year, UCLA didn't even blitz them in their game. They were literally just running 3 or 4 down linemen at Colorado, and it was a turnstile, and Shedeur couldn't even get the ball out within 2 seconds because it was that bad. So you think if you're the Bison, you're going into week 1, yeah, let's blitz him. Let's try to pull this upset. Let's be super aggressive, because let's see if they can really handle it and how that talk really played out. That's what I would do if I were the Bison. So it makes sense. I look forward to seeing how Colorado attacks it. What I will say is Pat Shurmur in the NFL and towards the end of last year when he had more responsibilities, he's a guy that likes to run a lot of lateral plays, bubble screens, jet sweeps, stuff like that keeps the offense or the defense out of sync and runs basically what I call like lateral running plays, even though they're passing plays within, 3 yards of the line of scrimmage or so. So I think that's the type of stuff that the Buffs are going to try to use to combat some of those blitzes. And we're really going to see, can Shedeur get the ball out quicker than he did last year? And if the answer is yes, not only will they beat the Bison, but they're going to be a serious threat to do some of the lofty things that they continue to talk about.
Now, Jake, just a couple more questions for you before I let you go. Everyone across the country talks about Colorado, especially since Deion Sanders kind of took the helm. I'm wondering what, if any, is the conversation about NDSU in Boulder, not necessarily among the media, but among the fans? Is this a team that they're saying, hey, this team's won a bunch of national championships at the FCS level, we got to be careful about them? Or is it a team that maybe they're they don't understand how dangerous NDSU is and how much history goes into that program.
Well, let me just give you the brief overview of Colorado's season this year. They're going back to the Big 12, so that's one of the big talking points because they're changing conferences, right? Understandable. Last year, their second and third week games were hosting Nebraska and hosting Colorado State, the school's primary rivals. They won both of those games. Both were pretty tight. Colorado State a lot tighter. This year, they're on the road to face Nebraska, who's got one of the best young quarterbacks in the country, and they're on the road to face Colorado State. So a lot of people in the fan base are looking forward to these rivalry games that directly happen after this week one opener, right? And it makes sense. They're the rivalry games. I can't blame the fan base, but I go back to what Deion Sanders said. One of the first things he said in his opening press conference this fall: I'm mad at Rick for scheduling this game. Rick George, he's the athletic director for Colorado. Deion Sanders is not happy that this game is on the schedule because Deion Sanders and the Buffaloes know that this program is no joke. And I think that message has been relayed to the fan base. This is not a cupcake to start the year against some FCS school, and then we're going to roll into the rivalry weeks. No, no, no. This is a school that is seriously getting bet on by a lot of people in the public, and a lot of people in Las Vegas, and a lot of people around the country are tuning in to see the Colorado Buffaloes lose. And there is an understanding in Boulder, again, a place that has seen two different FCS schools come in and beat the Buffs while they were at a lower point, granted, but it's happened twice in the last decade or so. And there's an understanding that there is no guaranteed win for the Colorado Buffaloes program still, and that I don't think that they're in a spot that they can overlook anyone, if you catch my drift.
I catch your drift there. Last question for you here, and this isn't, I don't expect you to do any of this, and legally North Dakota prohibits gambling, but I looked at the spread. It's 9.5, and I am just wondering, from a pure analyst standpoint, what are your thoughts on that spread? Because I've heard some people say, oh, they're going to cover that by a landslide. I have other people are saying NDSU is going to win outright. Other people, I like them getting 9.5 as far as NDSU goes. What are your thoughts on that spread?
Yeah, I ultimately think the Buffaloes are going to win this game by 2 touchdowns or 3 scores, however you want to put it, somewhere in the ballpark of 13 to 19-ish points. I like the Buffaloes to cover in this game. I just think that you look at this program, and there's too much talent on this Buffaloes roster to be in a spot where they're losing to an FCS school. Do I think they're going to be a college football playoff team? Not really. Do I think they might win 8 games? Maybe, if everything goes right and guys stay healthy. But I think ultimately the thing that'll hold the Buffaloes back this season is their coaching staff. I think that's going to be their biggest problem, not the talent on the field. And I think the talent on the field and the amount of preparation that goes into a week 1 game is ultimately going to be more than enough to get past what I think is a great football program, just obviously of a different caliber.
Well, Jake, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's a busy week for anybody on the beat for this game. Good luck covering it, and have a great time. Take it all in, man. Beautiful place to be in Boulder, Colorado. Take a walk on that bike path for me, man. I miss that every day. One of the great bike paths in North America, in my opinion. Great to talk to you always, my friend, and we'll catch up soon.
Football's back. Let's go. It's fall. We love it.
We certainly do. No matter where you are, no matter who you're rooting for, we're all happy football's back. That's all for now on Valley News Now, and we'll see you next time.